I went to a public bathroom and saw a guy with no arms standing at the urinal. After a few seconds of waiting for my turn, I realized that nothing was happening. He was just standing there, looking down. Everything all right? I asked him. Yeah, just got a slight problem here, he said, nodding towards his zipper. I guess it's the humanitarian in me that made me speak up. Can I give you a hand? I reluctantly asked. I'd appreciate it. So I unzipped him and pulled him out. Once I did, I was immediately repulsed. His business was covered in an oozing rash. I kept my poker face while I aimed him at the urinal. Afterwards, I put his business back behind the curtain and zipped him up. Thanks, man, he said. I immediately went to the sink to wash up, but I had to know what was up with his manhood. Not that it's my business, but what's up with your junk, bro? He pulled his hidden arms out of his jacket and headed for the door. Yeah, I sure don't know, but I didn't want to touch it. A 90-year-old man goes for a physical and all of his tests come back normal. The doctor says, "Larry, everything looks great. How are you doing mentally and emotionally? Are you at peace with God?" Larry replies, "God and I are tight. He knows I have poor eyesight, so he's fixed it. So when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, poof, the light goes on. When I'm done, poof, the light goes off. Wow, that's incredible," the doctor says. A little later in the day, the doctor calls Larry's wife. "Bonnie," he says, "Larry's doing fine, but I had to call you because I'm in awe of his relationship with God. Is it true that he gets up during the night and poof, the light goes on in the bathroom, and when he's done, poof, the light goes off?" "Oh, sweet Jesus," exclaims Bonnie. "He's peeing in the refrigerator again." Three friends are in a hotel room in Soviet Russia. The first two men open a bottle of vodka, while the third is tired and goes straight to bed. He is unable to sleep, however, as his increasingly drunk friends tell political jokes loudly. After a while, the tired man gets frustrated and walks downstairs for a smoke. He stops in the lounge and asks the receptionist to bring tea to their room in 5 minutes. The man walks back into the room, joins the table, leans towards a power outlet and speaks into it. "Comrade Major, we want some tea in room 62, please." His friends laugh at the joke until there is a knock on the door. The receptionist brings a teapot. His friends fall silent and pale, horrified of what they just witnessed. The party is dead, and the man goes to sleep. After a good night's rest, the man wakes up and notices his friends are gone. Surprised, he walks downstairs and asks the receptionist where they went. The nervous receptionist whispers that the KGB came and took them before dawn. The man is horrified. He wonders why he was spared. The receptionist responds, "Well, Comrade Major did quite like your tea joke." Several men were in the locker room of the gym when a cell phone on a bench rang and a man put it on speaker and began to talk. Everyone in the room stopped to listen. Man: "Hello?" Woman: "Hi, honey, it's me. Are you at the club?" Man: "Yes." Woman: "I'm at the shops now and found this beautiful leather coat. It's only $2,000. Is it okay if I buy it?" Man: "Sure. Go ahead if you like that much." Wavton: "I also stopped by the Lexus dealership and saw the new models. I saw one that I really liked." Man: "How much?" Woman: $90,000. Man: "Okay, but for that price, I want it with all options." Woman: "Great. Oh, and one more thing. I was just talking to Jane and found out that the house I wanted last year is back on the market. They are asking $980,000 for it." Man: "Well, then go ahead and offer $900,000. They'll probably take it. If not, we can go to the extra $80,000 if that's what you really want." Woman: "Okay, see you later. I love you too much." Man: "Bye, I love you too." The man hung up. The other men in the locker room were staring at him in astonishment, mouths wide open. He turned and asked, "Anyone knows whose phone is this?" A little boy wakes up one night and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room, where his mother is having a party with her friends. "I gotta pee," yells the little boy. "I gotta pee." The mother takes her son to the bathroom. "Son," she says, "we do not yell the word pee when grown-ups are around. Next time, just whisper, okay?" The next day, the boy wakes up again and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room, where his mother is continuing her party from last night. "I gotta whisper," yells the little boy. "I gotta whisper." The mother, relieved that her son was more discreet than last time, takes her son to the bathroom. "Well done, son," she says. "That was much more polite." The next day, the boy wakes up again and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room where his father is watching a football game. "I gotta whisper," yells the little boy. "I gotta whisper." The father says, "Son, come and whisper in your daddy's ear." By the time John pulled into the little town, every hotel room was taken. "You've got to have a room somewhere," he pleaded, "or just a bed. I don't care where." "Well, I do have a double room with one occupant," admitted the manager, "and he might be glad to split the cost. But to tell you the truth, he snores so loudly that people in adjoining rooms have complained in the past. I'm not sure it'd be worth it to you." "No problem," the tired traveler assured him. "I'll take it." The next morning, John came down to breakfast bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The manager was impressed. "No problem with the other guy snoring, then?" "Nope. I shut him up in no time." "How'd you manage that?" "He was already in bed, snoring away, when I came in the room," John said. "I went over, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and said, 'Good night, beautiful,' and he sat up all night watching me." Han Solo is chilling in his room when suddenly the light goes out. He tries to fix the bulb, but after an hour of laborious effort, he gives up. He heads over to Yoda's place to see if he can help. As Yoda opens the door, he spots a huge machine with flashing lights beeping in the middle of the room. "What's this?" he asks Yoda. "A cloning machine, this is. Your problem is solved. It will," exclaims Yoda. Solo nervously steps into the machine as Yoda cranks it up to max. Smoke fills the room, and as he steps out, 5 Han Solo clones materialize out of thin air. "That's incredible," they all say at the same time, and they head back to Han's place, walking together in an eerie unison. With a combined effort, they easily fix the bulb. Afterwards, he knocks on Yoda's door and thanks him for his help. "Achieve this Solo. You would not," says Yoda. "Only many Hans make light work." An old woman tells her husband that if he walks across the kitchen floor after she mops again, she's going to kill him. The next time she mops the kitchen floor, he does it again. He gets the kitchen floor dirty and tracks water into the living room. She does as promised. Without saying a word, she goes to their bedroom, gets his pistol out of the closet, and shoots him dead in his recliner. Then she calls 911 and tells them, "I told my husband that if he walks through the kitchen after I mopped, then I would kill him. He didn't listen and I shot him." Emergency dispatch immediately sends an ambulance for the husband and a squad car for the wife. The chief of police hears about the call shortly afterwards and thinks it's a rather strange story, so he drives to the house. When he gets there, his officers are still waiting outside. He asks, "Officers, why haven't you gone inside and arrested the woman?" They reply, "Sir, we can't go in now. The kitchen floor is still wet." A man wakes up after a night of drinking to see a single red rose on his bedside table. Beside the rose is a glass of water, 2 Advil, and a note from his wife. The note says, "Hi, honey, the pills are for your headache. When you're ready, come down to the kitchen and I'll fix your favorite breakfast. Love you." He also notices that he is still in the clothes he was wearing last night and that they aren't very comfortable. He goes down to the kitchen to find his wife humming happily to herself and dancing around in her apron. Upon seeing her husband, she dances up to him and gives him a loving kiss and says, "Go wait in the dining room. Breakfast will be ready soon." So he goes and waits in the dining room. The man's son is also sitting there. He quietly asks his son, "Hey, do you know what's up with Mom?" The boy looked up and said, "Well, Dad, do you remember coming home drunk last night? You were pretty out of it. You went upstairs and crawled in bed with Mom. Well, you were still in your jeans and shirt, and Mom didn't think that was very comfortable, so she decided to help you get undressed for bed. She couldn't, though, because every time she tugged on your shirt, you would push her away and yell, 'Get off me, lady! I'm married!'" A married couple went to the hospital to have their baby delivered. Upon their arrival, the doctor said he had invented a new machine that would transfer a portion of the mother's labor pain to the father. He asked if they were willing to try it out. They were both very much in favor of it. The doctor set the pain transfer to 10% for starters, explaining that even 10% was probably more pain than the father had ever experienced before. But as the labor progressed, the husband felt fine and asked the doctor to go ahead and kick it up a notch. The doctor then adjusted the machine to 20% pain transfer. The husband was still feeling fine. The doctor checked the husband's blood pressure and was amazed at how well he was doing. At this point, they decided to try for 50%. The husband continued to feel quite well. Since the pain transfer was obviously helping out the wife considerably, the husband encouraged the doctor to transfer all the pain to him. The wife delivered a healthy baby with virtually no pain. She and her husband were ecstatic. When they got home, the mailman was dead on the porch. Arthur is 75 years old. He's played golf every day since his retirement 15 years ago. One day, he arrives home looking downcast. "That's it," he tells his wife. "I'm giving up golf. My eyesight has become so bad that once I hit the ball, I couldn't see where it went." His wife sympathizes and makes him a cup of tea. As they sit down, she says, "Why don't you take my brother with you and give it one more try?" "That's no good," sighs Arthur. "Your brother is 85. He can't help." "He may be 85, says the wife, "but his eyesight is perfect." So the next day, Arthur heads off to the golf course with his brother-in-law. He tees up, takes a mighty swing, and squints down the fairway. He turns to the brother-in-law and says, "Did you see the ball?" "Of course I did," answers the brother-in-law. "I have perfect eyesight." "Where did it go?" Arthur asks. "I don't remember." A doctor, a priest, and an engineer go golfing. After only a few rounds, they get caught behind the worst group of golfers they've ever seen. After growing impatient from waiting for them to finish their holes, they go into the clubhouse to complain. "Let me explain," says the manager. "You see, those men all used to be firefighters, some of the best our city has ever seen. There was a fire here at the clubhouse about 5 years ago. Those heroic men saved our clubhouse from the fire. However, most unfortunately, they all lost their sight in the terrible fire. Since then, they are welcome to use our facilities for life. It's the very least we could do." The priest looks forlorn and says, "I'm so sorry to hear it. I will hold a prayer service this Sunday dedicated to these men." The doctor says, "What an awful thing. I know a highly regarded optometrist who has done some research that might be able to help them. I'll arrange for them to meet as soon as I can." The engineer thinks for a moment and says, "Why can't they golf at night?" Three little pigs walk into a restaurant and are seated at a table. After a few minutes of browsing the menu, they decide to start with some appetizers. The waiter comes over to take their order. "I'll start with some chips and salsa," says the first pig. "I'll have some mozzarella sticks," says the second pig. "Water, lots and lots of water," replies the third pig. They enjoy their appetizers and then decide it's time to order their main courses. The waiter returns to take their orders. "I'll have a double cheeseburger, no onions," says the first pig. "I'll have a dish of macaroni and cheese," says the second pig. "Water, lots and lots of water," replies the third pig again. They devour their meals, and soon it's time for dessert. The pigs flag down the waiter, who asks them what they'd like. "I'll have a slice of cheesecake," says the first pig. "Give me a bowl of soft-serve chocolate ice cream," says the second pig. "Water, lots and lots of water," replies the third pig. After finishing their dessert, the waiter brings the bill. He's a little puzzled and asks the third pig, "Why did you only order water tonight?" The third pig looks up and smiles. "Well, one of us has to go wee all the way home." One day, a man ran into his wife's first husband after a bit of tension between them. The first husband, with a bit of sarcasm, asked, "So how does my used woman feel?" The second husband, without hesitation, smirked and replied, "Well, after the first 2 inches, she was practically brand new." A nun, really needing to go to the bathroom, walked into a neighborhood pub. The place was hopping with music and dancing, but every once in a while the lights would turn off. Each time after the lights would go out, the place would erupt into cheers. However, when the revelers saw the nun, the room went dead silent. She walked up to the bartender and asked, "May I please use the restroom?" The bartender replied, "I really don't think you should." "Why not?" the nun asked. "Well, there's a statue of a naked man in there, and his most private part is covered only by a fig leaf." "Nonsense," said the nun. "I'll just look the other way." So the bartender showed the nun the door at the top of the stairs, and she proceeded to the restroom. After a few minutes, she came back out, and the whole place was hopping with music and dancing again. However, they did stop just long enough to give the nun a loud round of applause. She went to the bartender and said, "Sir, I don't understand. Why did they applaud for me just because I went to the restroom?" "Well, now they know you're one of us," said the bartender. "Would you like a drink?" "But I still don't understand," said the puzzled nun. "You see," laughed the bartender, "every time the fig leaf is lifted on the statue, the lights go out in the whole place. Now how about that drink, sister?" A man in a hot air balloon realized he was lost. He descended a bit and spotted a woman below. He shouted, "Excuse me, can you help me? I promised a friend I'd meet him an hour ago, but I don't know where I am." The woman below replied, "You're in a hot air balloon, hovering about 30 feet above the ground. Your coordinates are approximately 40 to 41 degrees north latitude and between 59 and 60 degrees west longitude." The balloonist thought for a moment and said, "You must be a programmer." The woman responded, "I am. How did you know?" "Well," said the balloonist, "everything you told me is technically correct, but I still have no idea what to do with that information. The fact is, I'm still lost. Honestly, you haven't really helped me." The woman smiled and said, "You must be a manager." The balloonist asked, "How did you know?" The woman replied, "Well, you don't know where you are or where you're going. You've gotten to where you are because of a lot of hot air. You made a promise you have no idea how to keep, and you expect me to solve your problem, and now, somehow, it's my fault." Two guys feeling the effects of a long night at the bar stumble into the car and start the engine. As they pull out onto the road, an old man suddenly appears at the passenger window, tapping lightly. The passenger, wide-eyed and in a panic, shouts, "There's an old ghost staring at us through the window." Freaked out, the driver accelerates, but the old man's face stays right there, pressed against the glass. The passenger rolls down the window a crack, voice trembling. "What do you want?" he asks. The old man's reply is soft but clear. "Got any tobacco?" The passenger, still shaken, hands the old man a cigarette, then yells to the driver, "Go, go, go!" The window snaps up and they speed off, hearts racing. A few minutes pass and they start to calm down, chuckling nervously. "I don't know what happened," the driver says, "but we're doing 80 now. Relax." Just then, there's another tap on the window. The passenger freezes. "There he is again!" he screams. The driver swerves as the passenger rolls down the window, voice shaking. "What now?" the old man asks quietly. "Got a light?" Without thinking, the passenger tosses a lighter out the window, shouting, "Step on it!" The driver floors the pedal, pushing 100 miles per hour, trying to shake off the terror, but then tap, tap, tap. The passenger's eyes go wide again. "Oh no, not again!" He rolls down the window, practically screaming, "What now?" The old man, unfazed, calmly says, "Need a hand getting out of that mud?" Jim and Ted had both worked for 15 years at the same bra factory, checking the quality of the products. When they were both let go, they headed down to the local employment office to sign up for unemployment benefits. They each filled out some forms and met with a jobs counselor, hoping to find new opportunities. Afterward, they each met individually with a benefits counselor to sort out their unemployment stipend. Back in the lobby, Jim asked Ted how much he'd be getting. "I'll be getting $500 a week," Jim said, "until I find something else." Ted replied, "I'll be getting $2,000 a week." Jim, puzzled and a little upset, asked, "How is that possible? We both worked the same job for 15 years, doing the same thing." Determined to get to the bottom of it, Jim went back to the benefits counselor. He asked, "Why the huge difference in our unemployment?" The counselor explained, "Well, Ted had a very technical and in-demand job that requires specific skills, so his unemployment is much higher than yours." Jim, still confused, said, "We were both working side by side in the same factory. How could our jobs be so different?" The counselor glanced at the forms and replied, "Well, according to Ted's, he listed his former position as diesel fitter. That's a highly technical job that involves working with fuel systems on an industrial scale. It requires a lot of training and is in high demand. Jim sat back, taking in the information. Okay, but that's where the confusion comes in. Every time a brassiere came down the line, Ted would hold it up to his chest and say, "Diesel fitter." Little Timmy wanted to take the family dog for a walk, so he went to his mom and asked if he could take her around the block. His mom, knowing the dog was in heat and not wanting to get into an awkward discussion about the birds and the bees, decided to avoid the conversation altogether. Instead, she told Timmy to ask his dad. So Timmy went out to the garage with the dog on the leash and asked his dad if he could take her for a walk. His dad, not eager to have the talk either, thought for a moment. He grabbed a cloth, poured a little fuel on it, and wiped it underneath the dog's tail to mask the scent. Then he told Timmy, "Go ahead, it'll be fine." About 15 minutes later, Timmy walked back into the driveway, but there was no dog. Concerned, the father asked, "Where's the dog?" Timmy shrugged and said, "Oh, she ran out of gas halfway around the block. But don't worry, another dog is pushing her home." A man is flying his plane, frantically searching for a place to land as he realizes he's run out of fuel. Despite the emergency, he's a skilled enough pilot to guide the aircraft down and land it gracefully on a small, empty beach. He exits the plane without a scratch. "Damn it, what went wrong?" he mutters, assessing the damage. The propeller is mangled, but the wings seem fine. He notices the landing gear has been torn off and is stuck in the sand about 15 meters away. Optimistic, he figures he can salvage and repair the plane. He heads over to the detached parts and begins digging through the sand. As he unearths a strange chunk of metal, he realizes it's brass, an unusual material for an airplane. Curious, he rubs off the dirt and uncovers strange markings that begin to glow. Suddenly, smoke billows from the metal and forms into a genie. "Thank you, kind stranger," the genie says. "I've been trapped in that lamp for many years. As a token of my gratitude, I will grant you one wish. But be warned, I am a genie, not a fool. Give me good reason not to turn your wish against you." The man thinks for a moment, scratching his chin, then says, "I'm always making the same mistakes. For example, this is my second plane. I can never figure out what I'm doing wrong. Please, Mr. Genie, I wish for better hindsight." The genie raises an eyebrow. "Are you sure this is what you want?" "Yes," the man answers without hesitation. "Done!" With a gust of wind, the genie vanishes and flies out to sea. The man sits down in the sand, looking out at the sunset. "I should have fueled up before I left," he sighs, putting his face in his palms. Then he looks up in horror. "I should have wished for better foresight." It was a typical busy morning at Joe's garage, the air thick with the scent of oil and gasoline. Joe, a seasoned mechanic with grease-stained hands and a sharp wit, was deep in the process of removing a cylinder head from the engine of a Harley-Davidson. His focus was absolute, until he happened to glance up and spot a familiar face in the waiting area. Leaning casually against the counter was none other than Dr. Harrison, a renowned heart surgeon in town. The doctor was waiting for the service manager to check out his bike, looking every bit as refined as always in his crisp shirt and tailored slacks. Joe smirked, an idea forming in his mind. Wiping his hands on a rag, he called out across the garage, "Hey, Doc, mind if I ask you something?" Dr. Harrison, a bit surprised, strolled over to where Joe was working. "Of course," he said, curious. Joe gestured at the engine before him. "Look at this," he said. "I open it up, take out the valves, fix them, put them back in. And when I'm done, the engine runs as good as new. Now, you and I, we're basically doing the same job. But while I barely make enough to keep my toolbox full, you're out there raking in the big bucks. Tell me, Doc, how's that fair?" Dr. Harrison paused, a knowing smile spreading across his face. He leaned in close, patted Joe on the shoulder, and in a calm, measured voice whispered, "Try doing it with the engine running." Marge lay tangled in the sheets with her lover, their quiet whispers filling the dimly lit bedroom. Just as things were heating up, a sudden noise echoed from downstairs, the unmistakable sound of the front door slamming shut. Her lover bolted upright, eyes wide with panic. "Oh no, your husband is home, what am I gonna do?" Marge, remarkably calm, simply pulled him back down. "Relax," she whispered. "He's probably so drunk he won't even notice you're here. Just stay still." The thought of making a run for it and getting caught mid-escape seemed far riskier than staying put, so the man trusted her judgment. He pulled the blankets up to his chin and held his breath. A few minutes later, Marge's husband stumbled into the room, his movements slow and unsteady. He flopped onto the bed with a groan and tugged at the covers, when suddenly his bleary eyes focused on the foot of the bed. "Honey," he slurred, pointing. "What the hell is going on? I see 6 feet down there." Marge, unfazed, sighed and rolled over. "Oh, darling," she cooed. "You're so drunk you can't even count. If you don't believe me, try again." Her husband frowned, swaying slightly as he sat up. Determined to prove himself right, he got out of bed, took a deep breath, and slowly began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4... He paused, rubbing his eyes. "Huh? Gosh, you're right, dear." A husband sat on the edge of the bed, watching his wife as she gazed at herself in the mirror. With her birthday coming up, he asked, "So what would you like as a gift?" Still staring at her reflection, she sighed. "I'd love to be 8 again." On the morning of her birthday, he sprang into action. First, he made her a big bowl of Cocoa Pops. Then, he whisked her off to Adventure World. What a day. He put her on every ride. The death slide, the wall of fear, the screaming roller coaster, no thrill was spared. 5 hours later, she stumbled out of the park, dizzy, nauseous, and barely standing. But he wasn't done yet. Next stop, McDonald's. He ordered her a Happy Meal, extra fries, and a chocolate shake. Then it was off to a movie, complete with popcorn, soda, and a bag of M&Ms. Finally, after an exhausting day, she wobbled through the front door and collapsed into bed. Grinning proudly, her husband leaned over and whispered, "Well, sweetheart, how does it feel to be 8 again?" Her eyes slowly opened. She blinked. Then, with an exasperated sigh, she groaned, "I meant my dress size, you idiot." One dark night in Dublin, a fire broke out at the local chemical plant. Within seconds, it exploded into massive flames. Alarms rang as fire departments rushed to the scene. The chemical company president, frantic, ran up to the fire chief. "All our secret formulas are in the vault at the center of the plant. They must be saved. I'll pay £50,000 to the fire department that gets them out intact." But the blazing inferno was too intense. More fire crews arrived, but none could get through. Desperate, the president doubled the reward to £100,000, but still, the flames held them back. Then, from the distance, a lone siren wailed. A small, battered fire truck roared into view. It was the Rural Volunteer Brigade, made up mostly of men over 65. To everyone's shock, they didn't stop. Instead, their rickety old truck barreled past the modern engines and crashed straight into the heart of the inferno. The crowd watched in awe as the old-timers leaped out and fought the fire with fearless determination. Against all odds, they extinguished the blaze and retrieved the secret formulas. Amazed, the chemical company president upped the reward to £200,000. He approached the fire chief, shaking his hand. "That was incredible. What are you planning to do with all that money?" The 70-year-old fire chief wiped his brow and said, "First thing we're going to do? Fix the bloody brakes on that fire truck." A young guy, always up for an experiment, wanted to see how fast a bicycle could go before it became uncontrollable. He asked his buddy, who had an old Chevelle, if he could tie his bike to the bumper to test it out. "Sure," his friend said. "I'll ring my bike bell once if I want you to speed up, twice to hold steady, and repeatedly if I need you to slow down." With that, they set off. The Chevelle gradually climbed past 60 miles per hour, and the cyclist was handling it surprisingly well. But then, an orange Camaro pulled up alongside them. The driver of the Chevelle, forgetting all about his friend on the bike, couldn't resist a little street race. A few miles down the road, Officer John was parked with his radar gun. He heard the roar of engines just before the radar flashed 105 miles per hour. He immediately radioed headquarters, "Dispatch, you're not going to believe this. I've got a Camaro and a Chevelle drag racing on Highway 3. He paused. and there's a guy on a bicycle behind them, ringing his bell and waving his arms, trying to pass.